Welcome, and I hope you're having a great day. I've been wanting to make these super cute purses for quite some time now, and when I saw the release from Concord 9th last month, they had some new turnabouts and shaker card stamps and dies, and I thought this would make the most fun beachy gift bag and coordinating shaker card duo. These little mini purses are really easy and so fun to make. Sky's the limit with all the options in creating them, so let's get started with this one. The beach bags are made with the Weekender handbag dies, and there's also a small stamp set that goes with it. I'll also show an example of the everyday purse die as well. And here's the flower garden turnabout set that I'll be using as the background, and I'll use the coordinating die as well. This is the flower shaker shape stamp and die set that I'll be using to make the cards with. I love the Concord 9th inks and cardstock. They have such great colors, and I really like the weight of the cardstock. I made a swatch with a tag die in my stash and labeled it with my label maker, and then added it to a cable key ring. The inks are super juicy also, and I do recommend getting the re-inkers to keep them that way. I'm going to set up the turnabout stamp of my Misty by placing the jig that you want to get, and it makes the turnabout stamps much easier. And then you're going to line up the stamp with the acetate piece that each turnabout stamp comes with, and you'll line it up as good as you can, but they're pretty forgiving. Next, you line up the X on the acetate with the perforated X on the jig, and then close the lid of the Misty to pick up the stamp, and then remove the acetate from the stamp. Remember to keep those with the stamp and not throw them away. I'm using a 6x6 piece of cardstock, and I'll add some temporary adhesive to it and then add it onto the jig. The first color of ink I'm using is Midnight, and I have to say this is my favorite navy blue ink. It's that perfect dark blue. So you'll ink up the stamp, close the lid, and then I use the Debbie tool to rub over the top of my Misty for even pressure. That blue is such a beautiful color. Now rotate the jig with the cardstock on it a quarter turn, and this time I'm going to use parsley ink. With each rotation, you're stamping in more of the design, and it really comes to life. I think these turnabout stamps are so genius in customizing a background, and now I'll rotate it again, and I'll use the buttercup ink. Depending on the color of ink and how dark I want it, I might stamp it a couple times. I'm just showing the one stamping to save time here. It's always so much fun to reveal what you've stamped. So now for the last rotation, I'll use the sorbet ink. By the way, these inks have been so popular, and I decided to get the mini ink cubes. I thought they were really great for stamping these turnabout stamps, but I plan to get the full-size inks because I love the colors so much, and they do have a great coverage with the firm foam pad. While I had this stamp in my Misty, I stamped a couple more combinations of this, and for this one I used honeysuckle, ballet slipper, a sprout, and grapefruit. And then for this one, I used eggplant, honeysuckle, parsley, and buttercup. So to make the purses, you need to stamp 2 panels of each color combination, and that die is going to fit just perfectly on that 6x6. After cutting those out, you want to have some supplies on hand to put these together. So I use a bone folder to crease the edges of the score marks that the die makes, and then you want to use some score tape, and I use mostly the liquid glue. I also like to use clothespins to hold some of the glued pieces together until they've dried a bit, and you'll see that as I start to make it. You'll start by folding each scored line and burnishing it with your bone folder. And you've got the big score line, which is the bottom of the bag, and the score mark on the side is going to give it dimension. And then it has 2 little tabs, which are going to hook the front and the back together. So again, you're going to do this on the other side too. It's the same. So once you've got all that scored together, there's a little V on the side, and you're going to push your bone folder in on that, and that's going to become the gusset. And there's one on each side of that as well. This really makes a realistic mini version of a purse, and I love making 3D paper crafts. So now you have your front and back, and it's ready to be glued together. I'm using the Concord 9th Midnight cardstock for the accent pieces, And you'll cut 2 of these rectangular dies and then fold the tabs on each end. These will be part of the sides and they'll be glued just above the gussets. I like to glue one of the tabs to the back of the purse first. So let me show you what I mean. I take what's going to be the back and I line it up with the top of my measuring grid on my mat. And I'll glue that piece by applying glue to the tab and adhering it 1/4 inch from the top. And you'll place that making sure the tab faces inward. And then I just hold it and make sure the glue has adhered to the paper really well. And then open that up and you'll repeat that on the other side. And again, I glue that, make sure that tab is facing inward and 1/4 inch down again. When you go to apply this to the front, it'll just automatically go where it needs to go. The piece that I just glued is going to go on the outside of the gusset when the bottoms get glued together. And so I'm going to take the back piece and you're going to put glue on the bottom of that one and put it inside the front. That way you don't have a seam in the front when you look at it. To complete the gluing from back to front, I add glue to the tabs on each side of the gusset and you'll attach them to the back piece. So remember, the gusset goes on the inside of the blue piece and the tab will overlap it a bit. And then I just use my bone folder to press down and reinforce that. To attach the rest, I add glue to all the remaining 4 tabs. And then I'll press that together and line those up. And I close the front onto the glued tabs and just make sure everything is lined up right. So you'll keep that blue piece lined up so it's still 1/4 inch from the top and the gusset behind. And I just press that down and then I'm going to flip it over and attach that side in the same way, the gusset inside and 1/4 inch from the top on the blue piece. When I'm done pressing that down, I actually use my bone folder again to make sure everything is adhered good. I like to round out those top pieces. Just when you close it, they're going to kind of fold out. You could have done this before you attach them. I just do it with my finger. I'm going to embellish this some more, and so I'm going to take those triangular pieces, and you want to cut 4 of those, 2 for the front and 2 for the back, and they give you 2 dies in the set, and they're meant for the right and the left sides. So I just attach those with glue to the front, and then I'll flip it over when I'm done and attach them to the back. There are 2 strap dies in the set, and I cut both of those with the midnight cardstock. And then I use my bone folder to curl them and round them out a bit. And I do that on both sides. I kind of flip it over and do it from the other side too. So you'll do that to both of the straps. And then I set those aside because I think it's easier to add the center strap without those long ones being in the way. The buckle is going to go on the center strap, and I cut 2 of those out of gold mirror cardstock and glued those together to make them stronger and also so they're pretty from both sides. If you get a little bit of glue on the mirror cardstock, just wait till it's dry and rub your finger on it and it'll come right off. This is the die for the center strap, and I'm going to cut 1 of these. I'm also going to use my bone folder to curl this piece as well. I'll add some glue and attach that to the center of the back. And this is where those clothespins really come in handy. I'll attach 1 of those to that strap and keep it on there until it's really good and dry. You'll slide the buckle onto the strap, and then I'm going to add some Velcro. And I just had some Velcro that I've got in my stash from crafting. But I will link also to some little mini Velcro dots. I just took a little sliver of this and I'm going to attach one side of it to the underside of the strap and glue that down, and then I'll attach the other side to the front of the purse. I just make sure that they line up, and it's about 1/4 inch from the top of the purse. And then I put my tweezers on it to hold it in place. With these little square dies, you'll cut 4 of these, so you'll cut each one twice. And they'll go on the end of the 2 straps. And then the gold mirror rings that I cut will go underneath each one of those. So this is just one way of doing this, and I'll show you examples for a couple different ways of doing it. There are lots of possibilities with this step, and I just had fun making each one a bit different. So here I am just gluing that piece on the bottom of the strap, and here's both of the straps. I decided on this one to have a ring hang from each end of each strap, and I'll make little charms to hang from these. So here you can see the 2 rings at the end. And after I've glued all the rings, then I glued the strap to the front and one to the back. And then I place a clothespin on each end until they're dry. Because of that curled strap, they want to pop off if you're using a liquid glue. I made some cute little charms to hang off the rings. And the flower is from the Flower Garden die set. The hello is stamped with midnight ink, and it's from the Flower Garden Turnabout stamp set. If you attended the Concord night, the virtual summer camp, then you'll have the Happy Campers set, and the camper comes from that die set. I'll use 1/8 inch hole punch and punch a hole in the flower in the camper. And then I'll use the small strap die from the Weekender handbag set to hang the hello. I purchased some bead chain, and it comes with 10 feet of each gold, silver, and bronze, and I just cut it to length with my wire cutters. You could also use your snips that you cut dies apart with also. So I just cut it to the length I need, and here's the little end that attaches it, and I just attached it onto that ring. I just thought that was so cute. I'll have that bead chain linked in the description below with the other products also. And then I'm going to add that little strap. I just used my bone folder again to round that out and added that onto it. I just couldn't stop embellishing it, so I added some gold pearls to the bottom of each strap in the center of those little square pieces, and I added them on the front and the back. They kind of look like the rivets on a real purse, but once you make one of these, they're so addictive you want to make another one. To top it off, I'm going to make some sunglasses with the Bright Eyes die set, and I cut one of the frame and then 2 of the solid piece in black and acetate to make them look like sunglasses, and then 2 each of the earpiece, which is actually called the temple. And I glue those together just to make them more sturdy. So I'm going to glue the frame and the acetate and black piece together, and then add those temple pieces to the back. And there's a score mark that you can fold it, and then just add it onto the bag, and I thought that really completed the look. And here's a look at the 3 finished bags. I think there are so many things you could put in these for a gift. I plan to put my favorite sunscreen sticks in them for my friends, but there are so many possibilities. You could put a treat in there, jewelry, any kind of small thing. For the pink bag, I used honeysuckle cardstock for some of the detail, and the glasses are made with ballet slippers. I used the silver embellishments on this one with the silver mirror cardstock and silver pearls and the silver bead chain. For the third bag, I used gold foil instead of a gold mirror cardstock to go with the gold pearls and the bead chain. I also used eggplant cardstock for the details, and it coordinates with the ink. I have a friend that really loves purple. I also wanted to create a purse using the everyday purse dies in that navy blue. I just couldn't help myself. Can you tell I love purses? I made this one to have a kiss closure, but again, there's lots of choices to give them a different look. And here's the die set, and it goes together very much like the Weekender handbag, but I think it's more simplified. I love the top part of the purse, and that tassel is so cute. I used the Stripes and Saying stamp for the background, and I used the midnight ink again. For the little kiss closure on that, I used an 8mm gold pearl on it, and I doubled them and put it on both sides. there's a little die in the set that is round, and I attached that and then put the gold pearls on both of them, and it just kept them closed. And here's the gold pearls. Who wouldn't want to receive a gift in this sweet little purse? I know I would. So for the shaker cards, I'll use the flower shaker shape stamp and die sets that I showed in the beginning of the video. I'm also going to use the same colors to match the beach bags. But here's another look at that stamp set, and I'm going to use that large flower, which has a circle die that cuts out the center to make the shaker cards. I'm going to place the stamp in the MISTI and pick it up at the door, and I'll use sorbet ink to stamp it with. I also use the Debbie tool. This is kind of a large stamp, so it's really helpful. Then I used the center of the flower, and I used buttercup, and for the leaves I used parsley. I'll cut them all out with their coordinating dies, and then I'll take the flower die and use it as a guide first on some heat-resistant embossable acetate. I tape that down on there, and then I'm going to add that to my MISTI so I can place my sentiment in the center of that. I pick up the stamp at the door, and then I'll brush on some anti-static powder so I can stamp with Versamark ink. And then I'll heat emboss the sentiment with white embossing powder. I've been having so much fun with this heat-resistant acetate, and it just embosses beautifully with such a smooth result. So now I'll take that die and cut out the acetate, and I just center the sentiment as much as I can. And it doesn't really matter if the petals line up or not, because I just end up cutting those off so I can center the sentiment and not have the acetate sticking out from it. I added some score tape to the back of the flower to adhere the acetate, and I just put the acetate on my grid mat and line that flower up as much as I can in the position I want it to be in. I took the flower and the circle die that cuts out the center and cut 4 more cardstock die cuts with that, so I can build up the dimension and I can put my little shaker bits inside. So take those extra pieces and glue them together, and then you're going to put the flower acetate piece on top of that. For the background of this card, I used the Positive Print Turnabout stamp set with the Midnight ink, and I decided not to turn it and just stamped it once in the first position. I trimmed it down, and then I added it to the Midnight cardstock. There are some cute little dies that make the shaker bits, so I used the one with all the hearts and cut it twice. I taped the center onto the back, and then I put the shaker bits in and then glued the acetate front to it. This was so fun and easy to make. I really like the clean and simple look that they have, and I like that I have a card to match the little gift purses. I ended up making cards to go with the other color combinations, and so I had to use the tulip stamp, and instead of making a shaker card, I used it with the banner on this one. On the background of this card, I used the scattered dots turnabout first, only stamping in the first position with ballet slipper. And then I came in with the sketch dots. It's a new stamp, and it kind of lines up with that. And I stamped it with the grapefruit ink. And I just stamped it the one time. And it really gives a cool result. It's kind of, it's a little bit offset. It's not meant to stamp on top of each other. I cut it down and backed it with ballet slipper cardstock. The tulip is honeysuckle ink, and the leaves are sprout. And the banner, I heat embossed that with white onto grapefruit cardstock. I also popped the banner up on foam tape to give it some dimension. The last card I made is very much like the first one, and this is shaker card too, just using different colors and a different background stamp. I really didn't want them to be exactly alike. I used the pinstripe background stamp on this with the eggplant ink, and I actually added my cardstock onto the Turnabout Jig, even though it's not a turnabout stamp. It just made it easy to place the cardstock in the middle of the MISTI and have good placement if I had to stamp it again. The colors on this card coordinate with its matching purse, and I used the honeysuckle cardstock for the heart shaker bits inside, and the hooray sentiment was embossed with gold embossing powder. And then I did stamp and emboss a sentiment on the inside from the Lots to Say stamp set. I can't tell you how much fun I had making these purses and cards, and thought they would really make someone smile with a little gift inside. As always, I hope we gave you some fun and creative inspiration. I'll have all the products listed below in the description, and while you're there, I would love it if you were to like and subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified when I have a new video. I also have some other fun videos at the end here that you might enjoy. Thank you so much, and until next time, I hope you have a great day doing something you love.